Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another Drytron deck profile. So today I wanted to do another profile that was very different from the last one because the other one was like a megalith version and it was definitely more like combo oriented, but it didn't really end on like multi negates really, except unless you really count like Appaloosa, but those are a little bit different. So today I wanted to do a perfection variant and show you roughly what to expect out of the deck and what to do. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get into the list. I think that it's actually a pretty solid list. You could honestly take this to heart and it might actually do pretty well. So yeah, so we have 3 alpha, 3 zeta, we have 2 gamma this time and 1 delta. I know I'm a pretty big person who loves the Drytron, so I usually cap out on these, but for a couple of reasons we've actually cut the Drytron count a little bit lower. So I cut like the worst ones. Usually you don't want to see like 2 gamma in hand, so I cut a gamma. Usually you never want to see more than 2 gamma or 2 delta ever, so cut those. I mean, technically you don't want to see any 2 of anything, but the ones you don't want to see the most are these 2 for sure. So yeah, obviously we're still going to keep the other consistency of the deck, so we're playing the Foolish, the Fafnir, the 3 copies of Emergency, and the 3 copies of Nova. So this is 17 Drytron names, which is still pretty nice. You still will have a pretty high chance of seeing them, but what's important about this list is that you see the Perfection cards as well as a Drytron card or 2. So that's why we're also on, I guess I'll move these out of the way really quickly. But that is also why we are on the 3 copies of Prosperity, because this lets you see whatever you're missing. And that's really important about this list, is normally I wouldn't play Prosperity. I don't think that this card's very good in Drytron, but being able to see like your extra copies of Alpha, or being able to see the Zeta you're missing, or your Perfection cards is just like super nice. So playing this at 3 is really nice to just see whatever you're missing. Then moving on, obviously we're playing the Draconids and the Medionis. There are some hands where you can't exactly end on a Perfection multi-negates because Ava's banned now. So going for this is slightly better than just, you know, passing your turn with nothing. So or your Perfection with like a single negate. So yeah, next we're playing a bunch of ritual cards. So we're playing 3 copies of prep, 3 copies of pre-prep, and then for Cyber Angels we're obviously playing the 2 Natasha, the 1 Natasha, 1 Idaten, 2 Benten census cards at 2. It actually does a really big buff to this deck. I think that it makes this deck like really good now. And yeah, having these cards is just really nice. You always want to see the Benten, so having this to search it is just like insane. The Dawn of the Herald and the Herald of Perfection. Shoutouts to the Ghost Rare. That's like the main reason why I really like playing this variant over like Ultimateness, obviously. Even before like during the Ava ban and stuff like that. But this is all the ritual cards, I guess technically if you count the Medion or these 2 part of it, but this is like fairy wise. But yeah, these are all really good. Anytime you search this, you have a free negate as long as you have Perfection on board. So like this isn't really a brick. It's like adding more consistency to your hand. It's always good. Even after if you draw 2 of this, it's still good because you can still search 2 Benten. So these cards are like really, really strong. A lot more than you would honestly expect. Then for fairies, we are on 2 copies of Diviner, which might seem a little weird because we're also on 1 copy of Manju. The reason for this is because in this current format, you kind of need something versus Despia, or you're just going to get blown out. And that's kind of the problem. Like, Super Poly exists, like a bunch of these cards exist, so you need to have something else as backup, which is why we're playing the Manju and the Chaos Valk. There is a world where you could also play Scythe, and then you can turn these 2 into Barone and have your search set Scythe. You could either play like Dagda in your extra deck, or you could just make Barone, like I was talking about. And then you could use your Baron effect to pop the Scythe, and then during their standby phase, you can use Baron's effect to tag out into the extra deck and summon the Scythe back to the field, and then lock them out of the extra deck. That's totally a possibility if you wanted to go the Scythe route. I know a lot of people in my last profile were mentioning that they wanted to play Scythe in this deck, and that would probably be the best way to do it. The unfortunate thing is this deck profile can't really do that because we're not on the Megalith card, so it's not going to come out as consistently. Because the only way to get to Baron is through these two cards. There is no other way. So I think that I've decided to do it with the Manju instead, and then also searching the Chaos Valk. Because if you think about it, this is just 2 searches, but if you wanted to do the Scythe lock, it's 3 searches, because you have to search this, and Scythe. So that's the thought process. I don't know if it's correct, because you could also play Dagda to set it, but that's the reason I've decided to go towards this instead. But yeah, we're also playing the Manju to make Dweller. So that's like the important part is Chaos Valk, Manju, make Dweller. So yeah, for the rest of the fairies, we're just playing the 1 copy of Orange Light. There's no reason to play more than 1, I don't think. I know a couple people have decided to play 2. I don't think that's correct, especially because you can search other fairies like the Chaos Valk to have as an extender, and it works just as fine. Then we're also just like the last 5 cards in the deck. We're playing the Call By, obviously the 2 copies of Droplets and the 2 copies of Talents. You could definitely fit Instant Fusion in this deck. There's a lot of space in the extra deck that you can work around with. I think that this is just fine for now. Moving on into the extra deck, we already saw one of those cards, but we'll go over everything. So we have the 2 copies of Fafnir, the 1 Dweller, the 1 Beatrice, and then the 1 copy of Zeus. So if you wanted, this could be Dagda, the Dweller, and then you could do that same combo I was talking about later. But I think that this is better. But you could switch it around a little bit. Then for synchros, we're on something brand new, Chaos Ruler. So this is actually really cool because this is a way to deal around with Valor or Imperm on your diviner. So it's like really, really good for that because if they Valor your diviner, you can summon back your Benten, and then you can synchro off 8 and 2 and make this, and then this mills just a bunch of Drytrons, and ideally a ritual monster, and you just add the ritual monster back to hand, and then you just trigger all your Drytron effects. So this card is insane. You only really need 1 Drytron effect to resolve to get to this card in the first place, so that's what's like really, really good about it. Then for the rest of the synchros, obviously we're playing the Baron, and then the Arclight and Entis, which will never actually be summoned. Sometimes actually this gets summoned, but it's very, very, very rare. Then for Link monsters, we're playing a Link Cravo, Phoenix, IP, Unicorn, Access Code Talker, and an Appaloosa. The Appaloosa is actually really important for the end board, because sometimes you can just end on Appaloosa with 4 negates, and your Perfection with 4 negates, and then you pass, and it's great. So yeah. Then, for the side deck, we are playing the 3 Lightning Storm. This is identical to the last one, so we're playing the Lancia, the Necrol Banshee, and the Zombie World. We're also playing the 3 copies of a Pointer, because this card's like insane when going first. You can just hit Droplets, you can hit Super Poly, you can hit everything out of their hand. If it doesn't hit the Super Poly out of their hand, you can at least threaten it, so they have to chain it. The 3 copies of Lava Golem, and then the 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. And that rounds off the side deck. So now I'm going to do a test hand with this deck. It's a little bit different than normal Drytrons because normal Drytrons you really just have to memorize combos, and that's like the important part about this deck. But with this variant, I think it's a little bit more important to actually play with your entire hand and kind of play through or around hand traps just as you go. Alright, so I'm just finishing shuffling up right here. I'm going to put this deck down, and then basically what we're going to do here is that I have a couple of hand traps right here. So I also have a dice, and this is what I like to do for test hands anyways. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll a dice from 1 to 5, and then whatever I roll, then we will be playing with that hand trap. If we roll a 6, it'll be something special. So yeah, in fact we did roll a 6, which is really funny. So when I roll a 6, I like to re-roll the dice and pick make 2 hand traps, so I'm going to roll it twice. So we have 1, so we're going to play around Nibiru or through Nibiru. We have a 6. I'm not going to do a 3rd hand trap. 2. So I guess that would be Ash because it was 1, 2. 1 would have been reroll. So we'll play through the Ash and the Imprint, or the Nibiru this time. So the deck is all ready to go. I'm just going to cut in half. I'm actually going to riffle a little bit more just to make sure that it is all ready to go. In fact, I'll roll a dice to cut off the top. I'll roll it twice. So I'll cut in half and then I'll roll twice. So we have a 5. That one fell off. And a 4. So we're going to cut 9 cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Just to show, this hand is completely random. So we have a Manju, a Delta, Benten, Draconids. Okay, off to a pretty decent start. And we have Dawn. Okay, so this hand is actually pretty workable. Really depends on what our opponent decides to ash us with. Because, like, with this hand isn't, like, amazing, but we can definitely work around stuff. The Nibiru is going to be really awkward to play around, but maybe we can do it. Because the optimal time for hand traps is usually to hit the Drytrons. But if you do see a Manju, I don't know, it's a really awkward one. So I think that we would start with the Manju and just see if our opponent ashed. So I guess we will just say our opponent did, because like it's really awkward to see like exactly what to do here. So yeah, we'll have our opponent throw down the Ash Blossom. So that negates our Manju. That's completely fine. We're going to activate Delta's effect here. I'm going to tribute the Benten out of hand. And then we're going to summon this. And then we'll reveal a Draconids. Or I guess we'll probably reveal the Dawn, actually, because we're going to use this later in our combo anyways. To draw a card. Then drawing that alpha is actually nutty. So then we're going to go Benten's effect. And we're going to use Benten to add, my guess is probably to add Perfection here. So that we can use our Dawn to actually play, but at the same time that doesn't really work, so I think we have to actually add Benten. This is a little bit weird. Do we though? It's so awkward. Because if we go Benten, I think this works. This should still work, right? We just have to be mindful about the Nibiru. So I think that adding the Benten's fine here. Because if we go Alpha Effect, tribute the Draconids, then this is going to resolve. We're going to summon it, and we're going to search for the Perfection here. And then this is the 3rd summon. And then we're going to activate the Dawn, and then we're going to tribute the Benten out of hand, summoning the Perfection, and then we're going to go Chainlink 1 Dawn, Chainlink 2 Benten, completely playing around Nibiru here because this is, this should be the 4 summon. Yeah, it's a 4 summon. I'm going to put that there. So our Benten's going to resolve, and we're going to grab a Fairy from deck to hand. I personally think that maybe adding the Orange Light is really good here. You could also add the Chaos Valk. Let's add the Chaos Valk because we're probably going to end on Dweller at the end of the turn anyways. This is just assuming we're playing against like a Despia deck, because obviously Dweller's like pretty good against Despia. So we're going to overlay these, and we are going to make a Fafnir, and then we're going to use Fafnir's effect. With the Fafnir, we could send a Zeta probably, because we don't have access to our ritual spells. So I think that's what we're going to do. Then from here, if our opponent decides to nib us, which they probably shouldn't, we have a Chaos Valk to do it. I don't know if we should do it like right now or if we should wait. It doesn't really matter. Like we could just Chaos Valk it because like the Nibiru's live, so I guess we'll just like. We could also have not searched this in case they had the nib, and then search this later. That also would have been a decent option. But if we go like Zeta Tribute Benten, we can keep playing as well. We can add this. Search for the Medionis. And then we go Benten's effects. This is also a spot where we could have searched the Chaos Valk. We could also search the Orange Light here. You could even play Lancey if you wanted, and then search that also. Then let's go. We don't really have a good way to trigger Drytrons again off of this Medionis, which is a little bit awkward, but we do have a Draconids in rotation that we can kind of end on. which actually is pretty decent. So I think that actually might be the route we should go here. Because we have 2 negates off of the perfection, which is honestly not terrible. That should be fine. So let's go Medionis. Summon the Draconids back to the field. And then let's go Effective Medionis on Zeta, add back to hand. And then let's turn these into IP up top. So you have a couple of options here. You could summon the Chaos Falcon and then just overlay these for Dweller and pass on that. Or you could keep the Chaos Falcon hand for the negates. It really just depends on what the matchup is. Like if you know you're against the Despia deck, then like maybe you should make the Dweller. Otherwise, it might be better just to keep the negates. I'm going to play safe, and I think I'm going to summon it anyways and go for Dweller. The only problem here is if your opponent also had an Imperm here, you would definitely lose. Because if they went Nibiru, and then they chained Imperm, target this, then you're screwed because you only have 1 negate, and then they clear your whole board anyways. So, yeah. So let's say our opponent Nibirus us, whatever, we just discard the orange light, we're fine. So the perfection kind of sucks now, but that's okay because during our opponent's turn, we have a lot of plays to work with. Plus, they're only going to have 4 cards in hand instead of 6 because they use 2 on hand traps. So we can use the Dweller to like stop them during the standby phase. And then during main phase, we can use the IP and tag this out with the Dweller. And honestly, the perfection, because we don't really need the perfection anymore since obviously we've used all the negates. And then we can go for an Appaloosa. So they're locked out of Grave. And you can use this, banishing the Fafnir, and then probably the Zeta since we've searched our ritual spells already. And then you can send 2 monsters to grave. So that's 5 interruptions, plus they don't have graveyard, through 2 hand traps. So that's actually pretty solid, honestly. You also have the Medionis to follow up. If they can't kill the Draconids, you can actually use this to like ritual summon like a Benten back and like keep playing. You obviously don't have to do that. You could probably just use a Drytron to do it anyways. Plus our draw for turn is a Drytron, so wow, I did not expect that to actually be a Drytron. That was actually kind of cool. But yeah, that is gonna do it for the video today. I hope you guys enjoyed. I think that it's a little bit better to do test hands and play through hand traps like this because it gives you a better way to feel for the deck. Plus, like playing through hand traps is actually pretty fun sometimes, especially with a deck like this where you really just have to like test and see like the optimal time to hand trap, stuff like that. So yeah, that's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys later.